I can't believe that movie was made by the same director as this. Well, I went to see Midway in. What do you know? Roland Emmerich produced a good film. Not just a good film, a great film. Now, disclaimer from the beginning for those who really know history, this gets the facts right, but it does at points play fast and loose with the technical aspects of the film. But you gotta keep in mind, this is a movie, not a documentary. You may even get conversations that didn't actually take place, but gets the historical facts of the situation across. That being said, this movie was well done, perfectly cast, the acting. A lot of the actors in this deserve Oscar buzz. Patrick Wilson, who played Leighton, deserves it. I even say that Woody Harrelson as. The name slips me now. I ought to know this. Hold on. Had to pause it to think about the name for a second. Woody Harrelson as Nimitz. Even Dennis Quaid delivered a phenomenal performance as Admiral Bull Halsey. The film actually starts with the Pearl Harbor attack, and we actually get something impressive we don't really see in Pearl Harbor depictions. When the Arizona is blown up, we see the damage on the deck from the perspective of sailors. There are some inaccuracies, again, like Japanese Zeros diving between the ships, which never happened, but again, film, not documentary. Sometimes you have to forego historical accuracy for what looks more cinematic, and it did look cinematic. It's something I'm willing to forgive. It even talks about how the Enterprise was like 100 miles out from Pearl, in that they had fighters coming into Pearl that were fired on by the Japanese during the attack. We even get a few scenes with the wives of some of our characters from their perspective, and a brief appearance by David Hewitt, aka Rodney McKay, from Stargate Atlantis as the commander of Pearl Harbor at the time, and telling Leighton that you have to make whoever replaces me believe you, which turned out to be Admiral Nimitz, which did. And I like that this film, it follows multiple characters and we see it from different perspectives. The film even begins with when Leighton was the naval attaché in Japan years before the war, and there's a nice conversation between him and Yamamoto, which Yamamoto was actually a moderate. He opposed war, but when it happened, he was a soldier. A sailor. He was an officer in the Imperial Navy, and he had to follow orders. But I don't know if this conversation actually happened, although both these men were in the same place at the same time, so it could have, but it might have been one of those things where it gets the idea of what happens and lays out what caused the attack on Pearl Harbor, where Leighton's like, look, we know you're not this, that, and the other, and Yamamoto tells him, look, if we get most of our oil from you, if our oil supply was cut, my government would go to war. Tell your superiors to give cooler heads a chance to prevail, let me and the other moderates try to do our job. And that was a nice touch, plus the fact that even though this film doesn't ignore the wartime atrocities committed by Japan, we see a guy with his arms bound thrown over a Japanese ship, and then the anchor he was tied to pushed over. We see Japanese fighters attacking Chinese civilians in brief glimpses of some of the torture, but it doesn't vilify the average Japanese soldier who had no choice in what they were doing. Again, it was like follow orders or die. Same thing with the average German in World War II. And it's done good. This film even covers the Doolittle raid, Coral Seas, which brief appearance by Aaron Eckhart, who played Colonel Doolittle, which was a phenomenal. He did, with what little screen time he had screen presence. He stole the show, and it was just well done. Great, great there. Again, I can't bash a single performance. There's no contrived, forced love story in this, like there was in Pearl Harbor, although we do see, like, the wives and loved ones of some of the characters, but it doesn't focus on their romance. And it focuses on how critical it is to keep the U.S. aircraft carriers alive, and focuses on how the Battle of Midway was really an aircraft carrier-centric battle. It shows how our torpedoes for the torpedo bombers were ineffective. And again, you'll see bombs strapped on planes that shouldn't have been, but it's overlookable. They probably thought it just looked better for a film, but again, I'm willing to go with it because of how everything was done. It even focuses on the fact that director John Ford was doing a documentary at Midway at the time of the battle, and shows him filming the battle, which, fun fact, the 1970s Midway movie, there's some actual footage from the battle in there. That was recorded by John Ford. And there is a lot of tense scenes in there. It even gave acknowledgement to the Nautilus, which took part in the battle, a submarine. But when they start dive bombing the aircraft carriers, there are so many misses, and every time a bomb or a torpedo just goes past the rudder, the tension just keeps building and building and building and building, and to where you're on the edge of your seat. And when it finally happens, when they finally take out one of the Japanese carriers, you're wanting to shout in your seat because it's such a great moment. I love this film. This is my second favorite movie of the year. I'll admit, personal bias towards King of the Monsters is keeping it at number one, but this is actually my second favorite movie of the year. It was that good. It's well paced, and the writing for these historical figures is really well done. It doesn't make them larger than life, even though some of them are. It just shows them as human, to the point where even how Nimitz is, you can see when it comes to trusting Leighton and his decoders, you can see it's a little out of Nimitz's comfort zone, but he kind of knows at this point, to win, we need to think outside of the box. Midway, especially the battle, they had to prove the attack was going to be at Midway. I like the analogy the Codebreaker gave. You know there's going to be a big wedding, but you don't know where, but you keep your ear out, find out this area has been reserved, there's caterers that are going to be working there that day, a band. I can't guarantee it's for the wedding, but if I was going to bet money on it, I'd say, yeah, that's where it's going to be. And it talked about how with breaking the code, they had to decipher bits and pieces, and it's technical, and I'm not going to go into it, but it worked out well. The battle was also phenomenally shot. The CG was so realistic. These massive ships feel like they had so much weight to them. Like a training exercise where a plane didn't get enough air and crashed into the sea, and because the Enterprise couldn't steer away quick enough, the Enterprise crashed into the plane and killed the two men. Even shows one of the biggest things that led to Japan leading the war, when they had to scuttle abandon one of the aircraft carriers and scuttle it. The captain and his XO stay on board, which so many brilliant officers were going down with the ship to save their honor, and they were losing good commanders for foolishness. This film was just well done and gets emotional at the end. I got a little choked up at the end when it all came together and you saw the text showing the actor, then the real person they were portraying and what happened to him. This is a loving tribute to our military men and women and to one of the most critical battles of the Second World War. The Battle of Midway was the greatest naval battle ever fought, and I can't recommend this one enough. And in the spirit of Veterans Day, if you're watching this and you're a veteran, thank you for your service and have a very happy Veterans Day. Or if you're seeing this after the fact, I hope you had a happy Veterans Day. So, Midway, must see. This movie is A+ all the way. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Over and out.